We are closing in on a week until Onyx Storm. It has been over a year since we've gotten a new Fourth Wing book. I think at this point we're all pretty much like chomping at the bit to get a new one. I believe Onyx Storm is going to be book 3 out of 5 for the Fourth Wing series. I think I've made 2 videos about theories going into this book. Since then, there have been hundreds of comments on those videos. I cannot tell you the joy that it brings to me to watch you guys talk to each other in the comments. When it comes to formulating theories, I love to talk about theories that other people have come up with. I tend to be one of those readers that's just like along for the ride. I don't tend to do a ton of speculating in advance, so it's so fun for me to go in and read y'all's comments and see like where the rest of the fandom thinks this is headed. So today I wanted to read some of y'all's comments and theories about what we're going to be getting in the next book. If you have not read Fourth Wing and Iron Flame all the way through to the very last page, it is your turn to exit. Go ahead and catch up before Onyx Storm comes out, and let's get into it. I think Violet's second signet is going to be that she can use all the signets. The only backup I have for this is that Andarna is a chameleon dragon. I think that's a fair theory though, because one of the coolest things about Andarna is that she is able to change herself. And so it would make sense that Violet receiving a signet from Andarna could do that too. I just finished reading Powerless, and one of the characters in that book, his power is being able to draw on the powers of people around him. Like he's able to essentially like grab from them and use it himself. And I don't think that would be completely out of question for Violet. Considering that her signet from Tairn is energy, we've only really seen it in the form of lightning. But I mean, think about the potential there is if we are taking other people's powers, mixing it with Violet's extra energy, and then using the power. I feel like she could almost work as a siphon and an amplifier. When it comes to healing powers, I feel like there's a lot that could be implied about her healing people for venom. If you take someone who has the ability to bring someone back who is almost dead, and they're able to bring them back to life through healing power, what happens when you add all this extra energy that Violet is able to use from Tairn? I'm trying to think of what other people's signets are, and I can't remember anybody else. It's been a really long time since I've read the book, and my thing with these books that I read really, really fast, because I'm so invested in the stories and the relationship that I read them really quickly, and then when I do videos like this, I'm like, who was anybody else? I really hope that Rebecca Yarros pulls like a Cassandra Clare going into this. Cassandra Clare is a master of going into a new book or a new trilogy and dropping in the context clues you need if you have not read the other books in years, or if you haven't read her other trilogies and stuff. And so I'm hoping Rebecca Yarros will do that for us, so that as we go into it, she's kind of like, oh yeah, and remember this character who did this, but like in a sly way. Like, what is Rhiannon's signet? I don't know. And I don't know if I'm gonna look it up. I think I'll just like to be surprised. Roll with me for a sec. What if the key to defeating the venom and the key to cure Xaden is actually Andarna? My theory is that Andarna's parents died to rid the world of venom, kind of like giving the world a clean slate. Okay, so this idea is that the type of dragon that Andarna is the only type of dragon who can cure venom. Like, they are the cure, and Andarna is the only one left. I think since we don't know how they died, I feel like it's fair to assume that those dragons died in battle, because unless their riders died of natural causes and they decided to go with them, which I assume they would not do if they had Andarna on the way. So if they could cure venom and to give them a clean slate, it's not like they would have to die and then the venom would die unless there's some sort of other connection. But if they died in a battle, sort of taking out all the venom with them, then I could see that. They're like, we're gonna make this sacrifice, take out all the venom in the world and give them this clean slate, and Andarna was just a leftover dragon that she just hadn't hatched and she wasn't in this battle. I could see that. Or if they had her as a safeguard for like what happens if another venom comes into the world, because for the most part Violet thought venom were fictional. I feel like it's possible that the majority of the population would have forgotten how to become venom or something like that, or they just didn't think it was a real thing, so they never tried. But I think unless there's another connection between that type of dragon and venom, I don't think her parents would have died just to prevent more venom from making themselves, if that makes sense, because then there would just be less protection against more people becoming venom, unless there's some other type of connection. But then I feel like that would mean that Andarna is the only reason there were more venom. Does this make sense? I feel like I'm not making sense right now. It does seem suspicious that there are no more of Andarna's type around. Xaden's mom is alive and is the head of the venom community. Because why would the venom be waiting for him like in Divergent it was Four's mom? I can't stop seeing the similarities in Divergent and Fourth Wing. Same. These books are very, very similar, which is why I'm very concerned. Maybe the Venom are like the Vampire Diaries originals, only killed by a certain dagger, and Violet's father's research will deliver like the answer. That makes sense to me. So yes, I also agree that Fourth Wing is very similar to Divergent, and it's following a lot of the same story beats. Like, I don't think Rebecca Yarros sat down and started writing Fourth Wing and had a copy of Divergent next to her. I just think there are a lot of similar story beats between all of these books. Like, the general type of book I like to read has very similar plot lines. But I think it's fair to just already not like Xaden's mom. Spoilers for Insurgent, Allegiant, if you haven't read them. Four's mom, she's like the leader of the rebellion, right? So I think it's fair to guess that Xaden's mom is high up in the rebellion, but she could also be high up in the Venom. Four's mom gave me such a headache in the Divergent trilogy, and it's because she was very antagonistic towards Triss and like implied that Four was going to choose her as his mom over Triss. And I feel like at times Four did. And now that Xaden is Venom, if he is going to pick his mom over Violet, or we're going to have that type of dynamic where he's having to choose between these two people, it would make more sense if his mom is Venom as opposed to a rebellion leader. I don't know if we know that about his mom yet or not. I can't remember. I know Rebecca Yarros mentioned that we're going to hear more about his mom, but I don't know what we know about her already. If she's in the rebellion, I could totally see, like, if we're following Divergent vibes, that his mom is high up in the rebellion, but is like low-key a Venom. And I also do think that the reason Violet's dad is dead is because he was killed because of what he found out about Venom. I feel like that makes a lot of sense, and that us working with Jesinia, we're going to uncover kind of his studies about it, or like maybe we're going to find that information when we go through Violet's mom's stuff, because yes, they're supposed to burn everything. I don't think they're going to do that. I don't think Violet's just going to randomly throw all of her mom's stuff away and she's not going to look through it. I think this is really interesting. I thought that the rune on Brennan's hand was from Naolan carving it into him when Brennan did die. We know X-Riders that are Venom can use their signet still. Xaden can still use his shadows after turning. So basically, Naolan, when he turned Venom, was still able to use siphon power to pull power from the earth to save Brennan, which is what we kind of thought had happened. In other videos I mentioned that it kind of makes sense if Brennan was dying, that if Naolan lost everything but didn't necessarily, we never hear that he died, we heard that he lost everything, which would potentially indicate his soul as opposed to just his life. He would have pulled power from the earth to give it to Brennan to live. And we know that this business with the runes is called imbuing. So if we can figure out how to imbue the runes through the people, then we can rework the rune onto Xaden and mend his soul. This might be a good idea. I feel like I didn't pay enough attention to the runes stuff that was going on because I was just kind of sidetracked. I was like, oh yeah, tattoos, runes, kind of the same thing. But they're not. They do work in different ways, and the tattoos have power in them. They're like a connection to the dragon, so why not runes? Like, why can't we use them in a way that's powerful? And then if we use the runes, Violet can amplify Brennan's power, which we talked about, like her potentially being able to amplify other people's power with her energy. So like maybe this is the cure? Like, do we find the proper rune and how to use it, and Violet's maybe the only one who can put enough power behind it? That would mean that Violet individually would have to go with Brennan and cure every single Venom, which could get complicated. And also my understanding is that they can burn out eventually. Like if you use so much of your power, it can be a problem, or you can end up pulling energy from the earth, and then Violet would be a Venom, which could be real dangerous if she has all this energy power flowing through her and whatever we're getting from Andarna. Violet's second signet might be able to communicate with the dead. I thought this too, like I thought this could be a possibility. I feel like, I don't remember how, but I had mentioned this in a previous video and somebody had proved it wrong. Partly because I remember her talking to Liam and I was like, hopefully that's her actually talking to somebody. But again, that was happening during her torture when she had all that like poison in her that disconnected her from her dragon. So she wouldn't really have been able to use her power that she got from Andarna, even if it is talking to the dead. Like that was purely a hallucination, or she's powerful enough to overcome that type of poison. If we are not going to find Violet's dad's information, like his writings and studies and stuff, then we are going to need to talk to him in some way. And Rebecca Yarros has confirmed that that man is dead. So we would have to talk to the dead if her dad was the one who figured it out. I feel like I could see that. And part of me just wants to go off the rails and be like, if she can bring back spirits of people, then like we could have some sort of spirit army of the dead going against our Venin, who are also kind of dead. I feel like it's not outside of the lore of this world for dead people to have living forms or be able to be physically there, because the Venin technically should be dead in most cases, because I feel like a lot of the Venin, when they turn, it's because they're pulling power from the earth to live, like as a last resort. So if Violet has anything to do with life and death, which I feel like could tie into Andarna's whole time situation, like her being able to control time and stuff like that. Does this make sense? If Andarna can control time, she can, to an extent, bring people back. Like, could she work individually on people as opposed to, like, the environment? Could we bring Violet's dad back to life? That would be interesting. I'm sure his body's decomposed somewhere, but it's magic. You never know. I'm sorry, but I laugh with the desperation on your face. I am so desperate for Tairn to not die. Like, Xaden won't turn back from Venin. He'll find a way to live sanely. Maybe he will become a double agent. That would be really interesting if we send Xaden in to like the den of Venin, and because like we know Venin seem to have their own club, they work together, so theoretically like they're not acting individually. So if Xaden goes into, you know, whatever society they have set up and works as a double agent, potentially there could be something there. I think there would also be a lot of temptation there. I've seen multiple different vibes when it comes to the Venin. My understanding is that it is sort of a temptation towards power the longer you are a Venin, and that is how Venin sort of turn evil. So if we send Xaden in, you know, what if he starts getting talked into the Venin viewpoint of things? That could be really interesting, and that would let us kind of see from Violet's perspective as Xaden is sort of slipping, and that would, I think, add a sense of desperation to what she's trying to accomplish. And I think that could be a good area of tension in the story if we're watching Xaden try to be on our side, but he's struggling with it. Violet is the last airbender of this universe. She holds raw power that can take on whatever form she requires, a wielder of all signets. So this is kind of similar to the idea that Andarna is going to allow her to use her power in a chameleon sort of way. But I feel like what differs with this theory is that the energy, like her being able to wield her energy however she wants to into many different signets, that would like free us up sort of to have Andarna give her something else, which could be, you know, something to do with time, because that is clearly something Andarna is tied to, or potentially that idea of talking to the dead. The thing is, Rebecca Yarros said that we've already seen her use this signet, and if Liam was a hallucination and not her talking to someone who's dead, then like there's no other time where she did that. Lilith says, when you're a mother, talk to me about who you're willing to sacrifice so your child lives, another proof that she might have killed her husband. So I have seen a theory that I think could be real, that Violet's dad had turned Venin and Lilith was the one who had to kill him, despite her being very clear in Iron Flame that she loved Violet's dad. And that would make sense if she's like, you never know that you could, you know, kill someone that you love to protect your kids until you're in that situation. It's a common theory that something is Venin-ish about Violet's parents because of her hair being silver at the end and like having that color leached out of it. We also know that Lilith had been looking for a cure to being a Venin theoretically because her husband was a Venin. And we also kind of have a note that he died from heartbreak, and that could potentially be what Violet was told, even though, you know, maybe he died from being a Venin, kind of losing his mind in that way. I think if we are going to go through Lilith's stuff and we find studies from Violet's dad, that Lilith might have kept some sort of journal documenting this process. That could be a way that Violet is able to feel closer to her mother, even though she's passed, because there was a big rift between them. And at the end of Iron Flame, I felt that it was a big character switch for her mom to suddenly be pretty open about her feelings, and I think that opened a loop that didn't fully get closure. And so if Violet is reading, you know, stuff from her mom about watching the person she loves being driven mad by being a Venin, that's something that she is about to experience. And so maybe she can get advice from her mom in that way. I would really like to see that, because I feel like we're not fully done with Lilith's character. Obviously, like, she's not going to be in the book, but there needs to be some sort of influence in Onyx Storm, or all of the books moving forward as a whole, from Lilith, because I feel like that we never really got closure about her mom. We shall see, but I think that would be really interesting and cause a lot of emotions in Violet to find out that her mom had actually killed her dad. She enhances the power of those around her. Rhiannon being able to get the dagger. Oh, wait, that's actually... Hold on. Mira able to shield on her own. Okay. And then the reply was, since she wields pure power, why wouldn't she be able to pass it on to someone else? Maybe she did it subconsciously. I think both of those are fair arguments. I didn't even think about that with Rhiannon being able to get the dagger because she had been having such a hard time. That was her signet, isn't it? It's being able to telepathically tell us something. That word for being able to move objects, right? And if we did see that more than once, like if we saw her strengthening the people around her, that's something really potentially subtle that we wouldn't have noticed, even though it was there, because Rebecca Yarros promised us her other signet has already manifested. And I think it would make sense for her to act as an amplifier. I think that has to be it. I feel like so many of these theories are kind of like jumping around the fact that she's able to use her power to make other people stronger, which would make sense with who she is as a person. That was one of my favorite scenes, was Rhiannon getting that dagger when Violet comes back in and she has this contraband dagger and she's just looking at Rhiannon like, help. I do love it when besties communicate with no words. Xaden explained that a rune was given by his father would protect him from even death, but it would only work if the death came from dragonfire. So Venin Xaden is going to be burned alive by Tairn, but the magic is going to save him after that from the rune. I like this idea. To be honest, like, I'm worried that we're going to have Venin Xaden until the end of the series. And that's going to, if there's going to be any type of love triangle, which I hope we don't have, but I could see it happening, is if Xaden remains a Venin and we have another writer coming in. That's not Dane, please. But I think that would make sense because the only way to destroy Venin is dragonfire, right? Like, you have to burn them. It's like the Twilight vampires. So if Xaden has this rune that protects him from dragonfire specifically, then the dragonfire could burn the Venin part of him, but not the human part of him. And we're fixed. This obviously doesn't fix it for everybody else, unless this is the rune that we are looking for, that we were talking about earlier. That we need this rune for Violet to give to everybody to turn them back. And then there will be a series of dragons that just go and burn all the Venin. That seems like it would be super... I feel like that would be such a painful scene to just have the dragons burn everybody who's Venin. But that would also require... Here's my thing. Do the Venin want to be saved? Obviously, Jack Barlow doesn't. He understands that he has more power as a Venin and enjoys that. But people like Xaden, who didn't want to do that, or people who made that choice because they wanted to live, but they did it at the expense of becoming a Venin, are these people that we can pull back from the edge? Like, can we just put up a sign being like, come get the rune and stop being a Venin? Or is this going to be a fight to save all these people despite them not wanting to be saved? Okay, so I've seen this one. Xaden is the one who's having these dreams. So we, in Iron Flame, Violet has all these dreams about the Venin being like, I'm coming for you. And we're wondering, are those actually Xaden's dreams? And Violet is just seeing them through the bond. Which I think could make sense because what if, like, if we go back to this idea that Xaden's mom is Venin, like a leader among the Venin, of course she wants her son. Of course she wants him to turn and be with her. Because outside of Violet's power, what do they really want from Violet? This is another one with runes. What if we enchant a dagger that removes the Venin part of someone and Violet has to stab Xaden to save him? I could totally see that happening. Like, her having to almost risk it. Like, if we have this dagger and we don't know if it's gonna work and she's gonna have to stab him anyways, and like the Venin part of him has to die, can they be separated like that? I feel like you would somehow have to separate the life and death nature in a person to kill off the Venin part. But the more I'm reading this, the more I feel like runes are going to have to come into play here. Andarna stopped time, maybe that's how she put off hatching. That's what I thought too. I think I don't know if I said this in a video or not, because I was confused about how Andarna was able to control when she hatched. She, to an extent, can control time. So that would make sense that she can sort of stop her own body from aging inside the egg and wait for Violet to come along, somebody who she knew she was going to be able to work with to defeat the venom. I just want to hear from Andarna that she was conscious inside that egg before she was born. I just want to know, like, if she waited, how did she wait? How did she know to wait? Unless her parents somehow gave her that information telepathically into her eggshell. Like, how else would she have known? But I feel like that is the only logical answer to put off hatching. Like, you would have to know to wait, and you would have to have the power to wait. And Andarna is the only dragon we know who would even have that power. And how did Andarna know it was Violet? I need answers from Andarna. I think Xaden's mother might be involved with the venom, or even the leader of the venom. I think there's a whole higher echelon that we have yet to see, if there's still 3 more books to the series. And I think that's fair. Like, what if there is, you know, a higher section? Because we know that Naolan is like the leader, right? But then there could be a higher, you know, people who is controlling them. And I feel like it just, the more I think it and say it, the more I believe that Xaden's mom is venom. So I think that would be interesting if there's like some sort of, you know, like leaders of the venom. I feel like I barely scratched the surface with like how many comments were on those videos. So if you like really want to dive into some deep theories, there are some really intense, like, in this essay I will explain, like, those type of comments that were so interesting. I feel like it would be a lot for me to sit here and read them out to you and stuff like that. But if you're anxiously awaiting Onyx Storm and want some interesting theories, I will link those videos below if you want to go check out what people are saying. Some of y'all are little detectives, and I was so impressed. Also, we have passed the 2K mark, which is very exciting. So thank you for being here. To celebrate, I was going to give away 3 sets of the book cover that I make in my little shop. And the winners of that, I'm so sorry if I mispronounce your names, Dylan Delval, Rakshita, and Lauren Breadmore. I'll be sending the 3 of you an email this week to figure out which design you want and stuff like that. And if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure to do so, because Onyx Storm is coming up and I'm 100% going to be talking about it. And if you have any more Onyx Storm theories, please drop those in the comments so we can continue to theorize. I think we're going to be getting a lot of answers in Onyx Storm, but I think we're also going to be getting like enough more questions that it'll feel like we didn't get any answers. I'm just really concerned about Tairn and Sorrengail. If you've seen any theories, I'm sure you've seen that one, that we think that they're not going to be making it. I think about it all the time, and I'm just really concerned that she's going to do that in book 5. I can feel it. Please like this video if you liked it. Click subscribe if you want to talk about more book stuff. My name's Caitlin. Thanks for watching. Bye. Should I troll everybody and make this look like I have a copy of Onyx Storm? Is that evil? I might still do it.